It's good to sing. Thank you for your work and for your artistry. I was the last person in my grade at Abraham Lincoln Elementary School to stop believing in Santa Claus. I loved the idea of a fat man in a red suit who traveled miraculously through the skies from the North Pole, snuck into my house on Christmas Eve, and left my heart's desire under the Christmas tree, especially the cowboy outfit I got one year. Then my so-called friends came along and told me that it wasn't true, that it was just my mom and my dad. They were like the boy who came home from Sunday school one Sunday, and the lesson had been about the parting of the Red Sea, the miracle of Israel's deliverance. And his mother asked him what the lesson was, and he said, well, it was about how the Marines took the Jews out of Egypt. Really? Well, no, but if I told you what the teacher really said, you'd say I was lying. It's just too fantastic. And I was outraged. I actually argued vehemently for his existence. I had proofs that Santa Claus really existed. One Christmas Eve, I set cookies and milk out in front of the Christmas tree, and they were consumed the next morning. Explain that, fool. But the arrogant little cynics just looked at each other, rolled their eyes, and smiled at their credulous little friend, Benny. Yes, they too once believed that stuff, but now they were wiser. Maybe a little sadder, but yet wiser. And they were right about Santa Claus, and I was wrong. And I still remember the blush on my dad's face and the way he couldn't look me in the eye when I demanded that he tell me the truth. But they were also wrong about something much deeper. You know, Sigmund Freud is famous for saying that our belief in God is simply wish fulfillment. We like the idea of a Father in heaven who would protect us and love us, and so we imagine that there must indeed be one. What Freud didn't understand is that his wish that there not be a Father in heaven might be the reason he didn't believe in one. See, what's left when you take Santa Claus and elves out of the picture? Well, I don't know, I was 8 or 9. The world suddenly seemed claustrophobic, stuffy, without windows. All that was left in my little town, and my little town was Compton, California, was, well, there's a song called My Little Town by Paul Simon. It was actually taken from a poem by Langston Hughes. And the refrain is, nothing but the dead and dying in my little town. And then this, and after it rains, there's a rainbow and all of the colors are black. It's not that the colors aren't there, it's just imagination they lack. Everything's the same back in my little town. Nothing but the dead and the dying. In other words, my need to believe in Santa Claus was a signpost to a deeper need. To believe in God, that there was more to the world than just what I could taste, touch, hear, smell, and see. That there was, well, enchantment. The world is enchanted by a dark power. It is, if you've read your fairy tales. And the dark power is the power that tells us this is all there is. And as in any good fairy tale, it takes another kind of enchantment to come along to destroy the old dark enchantment. So yes, I needed to believe in God, and you do, in the same way that a starving man needs to believe there's such a thing as food. I'm hungry. My stomach was made for food. I need food. There must be food. And if not God, then a God substitute. So, the gospel has a fairy tale quality to it. I'm not the first person to recognize this. But it starts like this. The Word, that's the term for Jesus in the first 14 verses of John's Gospel. The Word was with God. And the Word was God. Now, John was no fool. He was a good Jew. He was a monotheist. He knew there was only one God. And yet, after a lifetime of following Jesus, he would write, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God." So far, so good. And the Word was God. All things were created by Him. There was nothing that was created that was not created by Him. In Him was light, and that life is the light of human existence. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The Word became flesh and dwelled among us. In fairy tales, we enter the extraordinary by way of the ordinary. The children and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe walk through a closet among fur coats, and the next thing they know, they're in another land. And we can do this only because the extraordinary has entered the ordinary. A world beyond our world breaks in and opens a door, and we enter and are transformed, and we live happily ever after, as in all good fairy tales. But this is true. This is a fairy tale that really happens. And Jesus, later on in that first chapter of John, meets Nathanael, and he says, I saw you. You were sitting under a fig tree. And Nathanael is astonished because he knew Jesus wasn't there. And he said, well, you are the Christ. And Jesus says this. He says, is that why you think I'm the Christ? Now, this is a paraphrase. He says, but hold on. You are going to see heaven opened and angels descending and ascending from heaven to earth and earth to heaven. Just like Jacob, at a place he later named Peniel, which means the face of God. Well, the gospel invites us to take more into account than mere sense and intellect and worldly calculations. There was a sea captain in the 19th century named Eleazar Hall. He was a real eccentric. And he was asked how he navigated his ship. And he said, well, I go up on the deck. I listen to the wind and the rigging, get the drift of the sea, take a long look at the stars, and set my course. Then I go into the cabin, get out the charts and tables, work out the proper equations, and set the course with scientific precision. Then I go back up on the deck and listen to the wind and get the drift of the sea and take a long look at the stars and correct my course for errors. Now, that's not a good way to navigate a ship, but it's a great way to live. Because we live in a world that has been and is enchanted. God with us. And why did He do it? Well, He loves us. He actually desires our friendship. Now, a little spiritual autobiography here. Ben Patterson always believed that God loved him, but in a kind of condescending, oh, he is so ugly, but I'm God, and that's what I do. And I'll kneel down and pick up this dirty little, credulous little boy who believes in Santa Claus, and I'll love him. I was so wrong. He made me. God made you. God has real affection for you. He actually finds you lovely. Now, I know about sin. God knows about sin. And He hates sin because of what it does to His lovely people. Soren Kierkegaard, told a great parable about the gospel. It's about a king who loved a peasant girl. Now you can imagine this young king. He's a bachelor. And as he goes through the streets of his realm, there's this girl. Oh. Her clothes are common. Her appearance is, she's got rough hands, but she's beautiful. And he cannot stop thinking about her. And he wants her. And he's stuck. What can he possibly do to get her to love him back? I mean, to really love him. I mean, he can't invite her to the palace and have coffee. You know? I mean, she's sitting with a king. I mean, there's absolutely nothing he can do as a king to win her love, except for a while to stop being a king and to become a peasant and to work the fields and to live in the village and to ask for her parents' permission to court their daughter, to sit in the front porch and carry on awkward conversations. What kind of king would do that? But then to win her love, and then at their wedding, for her to discover that the awkward young man who had tried so hard to get her attention and to win her love was the king. You guys, Christ did not come to make you a better person, but a new person. He didn't come to change your behavior, but to change your mind about Him. God doesn't want to fix you. He wants to take you home. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. Why? Well, He came to His own, and they didn't receive Him. But to as many as received Him, to them He gave the power to become children of God. God doesn't want to fix you. He wants to take you into His household. He wants to adopt you. He wants to marry you. And the fixing will come later. Why else? Why else would He move into the neighborhood and become one of us? Well, nothing but the dead and dying in my little town. And after it rains, there's a rainbow, but all the colors are black. It's not that the colors aren't there, it's just imagination that they lack. However, yet in your dark streets shineth the everlasting light. How silently the wondrous gift is given. Amen.